Welcome back to the Daily Dribble Podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit, here back, fit and firing for another massive installment. Tell you what, this is going to be a fun episode. I've been looking forward to doing this one all week. I had a lot of fun planning it during the week, and I reckon you guys will get a bit of a kick out of this, especially if you're a fantasy NBA player out there. I'll touch on that a little more shortly. Guys, before we get into today's episode, a big shout out to both the Spotlight Sports Network and the Cover, keeping us viral, keeping us in the forefront of people's minds in the US, in Australia. We certainly appreciate all their love and support, continuing to showcase not only our work, but other aspiring content creators out there. So a big thank you to both of those entities once again. As always, be sure to stay up to date with all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. As the action starts to get closer, now we're about 2.5 weeks out from the tip-off for the NBL season, 5 or 6 weeks there for the NBA. But the news is starting to ramp up, starting to build. You can feel it in the air. So be sure to stay up to date with all those platforms so you get the news as soon as it breaks. In addition to subscribing wherever you listen to the show, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, guys, hit that subscribe button or follow button so you never miss another episode and you get this news as soon as it breaks. Guys, let's get into some odds and ends today. Let's start with the news that came out the other day regarding Phoenix Suns owner Robert Sarver. Now, it's been about 12 months, this ongoing investigation due to inappropriate workplace misconduct. It's finally come to light, the punishment that he's been served. So Sarver there has been fined $10 million. He's been suspended for a year from the Phoenix Mercury there and the Phoenix Suns. And he's also going to have to undergo kind of like counseling. So he's got a pretty hefty punishment there. As I said, this was running rampant throughout the start of last season. It didn't affect their on-court performance too much. Yet now that toxicity is gone out of the organization for 12 months at least, hopefully they can flourish on and off the court. Now, if you weren't familiar with the actual incident itself, as I said, an extensive investigation, hundreds of people interviewed and things of the kind, and it was all surrounding Sarver's, to male and female colleagues, really inappropriate conduct, physically and verbally. So hopefully now that he's out of the fold, it's just a better working environment, because it was quite a dark cloud that hung over the franchise's head for a few months there. But for me, I probably wouldn't be surprised to see the Phoenix Suns up for sale in the very near future. I think with this kind of punishment and this kind of almost disgrace to his name, well, it is disgrace to his name, it wouldn't come as a surprise to see the Phoenix Suns up for sale very, very soon. Let's move ahead to the team that knocked them out in the Western Conference semifinals last year, the Dallas Mavericks. Now, they've brought back a key cog of that particular team there that did Phoenix in, did a real number on them. They've brought back Maxi Kleber on a fully guaranteed 3-year extension worth $33 million. He had his worst shooting percentage of his career last season. But in the playoffs, he averaged 9 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1 assist, and he was 43.5% off the bench from 3. Now, despite his struggles in the regular season, if you're getting that kind of productivity off the bench, that's huge, and it's certainly a very warranted extension. And I think it's key for the Mavs as they start to build into a top-tier team in the West, that they keep that continuity. So I've got no qualms with that. 3 years, $33 million, $11 million a season. You know, he'll come off the bench once again, but he does give them flexibility if they wanted to play a smaller ball lineup to start in the 5. And that versatility, I think, for them, especially moving forward, is key. So Maxi Kleber, 3 years, $33 million. Fair play. Fair play. I think that's a good contract for him, and I think it's very, very team-friendly as well. So everybody wins here. Now, a player that we probably didn't speak enough about a couple of weeks ago in regards to the Jazz-Cavs trade surrounding Donovan Mitchell was Lauri Markkanen. Now, I think he showed flashes. In his time with the Bulls, he showed flashes. I know he copped quite a bit of flack with the Cavs. He hasn't lived up to his expectations as of yet. But I'm really hoping that while the Eurobasket's currently on, He's been suiting up for Finland there. And I tell you what, the other day in their round of 16 game versus Croatia, he dropped 43 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, had 0 turnovers in a game in which Finland beat Croatia 94-86. Now, it's the first time the team has made the quarterfinals since 1967. But I tell you what, it's an interesting point, seeing these players. I know Dennis Schroeder balled out the other day for Germany. All these other players that aren't big name players in the NBA, seeing them flourish on the international stage, for Markkanen in particular, could this kind of be the catalyst I guess that installs that confidence and belief in him? And hopefully, he's going to get heaps of opportunity in Utah there, just with the way their trajectory, or I guess how their team's probably expected to go this season, the pieces they've currently got. He's going to get a big opportunity to prove himself. As I said, 43-9 on 0 turnovers. If that doesn't put belief and confidence into your abilities, I don't know what will. So fair play to him. And to be honest, I think there's the potential in 6 months' time that not only on myself, but other podcasters, other news outlets out there, that we undervalued the impact that Lauri Markkanen will have. As I said, it was a lot of the talk was around the draft picks and Sexton going back to the Jazz. Not too much was made of Markkanen, but if he can start to flourish into the player we've seen little flashes of, it'll be a key piece there for the Jazz's rebuild. So fair play to him. 43 points, 9 rebounds, 0 turnovers, nothing to sneeze at. Guys, pencil in your calendars, October 4th and October 6th, only a couple of weeks away now. We're going to get the opportunity to see the top 2 draft prospects in next year's class face up against one another. Now, Victor Wembanyama, who we've spoken about a little bit over the course of the last couple of months, and Scoot Henderson will face off in a set of exhibition games in Las Vegas. Now, I tell you what, for Wembanyama, Zion, yeah, okay. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's ever been a player who's been more highly touted at this point in time. People are expecting him to be a generational talent, probably not really seen before in the league. 7'4", I believe he is. Don't quote me on that, but I believe 7'4". So he makes Shet look small. As I said the other week, the key thing for him will be health. If he can stay healthy, can stay on the court, the ceiling is really as limitless for him. And for Scoot Henderson, I know he's struggled a little bit from 3 over the last season or so, but analysis out there absolutely love him. So this is going to be a tantalizing matchup. As I said, the 4th and 6th of October, the top 2 draft prospects, Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson, in a matchup for the ages, and a matchup hopefully we'll see a lot more of over the coming decade. Pencil it in. Guys, just on the NBL front, a quick point here. There's been a couple of preseason hitouts over the course of the last week. Just wanted to make note that the imports coming in this season, they're not here to muck around. Now, on last week's show, I delved into my NBL predictions for the upcoming season. I did my predicted standings, MVP, players I was most keen to see, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. And I mentioned, in particular, Rajon Tucker. He was the player I was most excited to see this coming season. He dropped 28 points, 9 rebounds, and assist versus the Brisbane Bullets as well, in addition to Justin Robinson of Illawarra dropping 26 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists versus the Breakers. And Craig Randall II for Adelaide there, dropping 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists versus Perth. Now, they're just 3 cases that we've seen over the last week or so. But the imports coming in this season, I know for the Jack Jumpers, we've got a bit of a look at Rashard Kelly, Milton Doyle. We know what Josh Majette can do. But just a couple of names to keep an eye out for. And this is what you want. When you're a franchise and you sign an import player, you expect big things. You expect, I guess, immediate return on investment. And I tell you what, so far so good in preseason. These blokes are living up to it. So, as I said, 2.5 weeks out from the season tipping off, that anticipation, it's continuing to build. I'm pumped to say the least. As I said last week, check it out if you haven't already. But I really think it's going to be a really even league. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in and around the mix, especially with the integration of the play-in format this year. I can't wait. So pencil it in, guys. The first game, I believe, is October the 1st. So what are we? That's 2 weeks away. Look out. Okay, guys, let's move ahead. Oh, no. I've lost the plot. My music system's gone.
The Daily Dribble.
Yeah, it probably wasn't worth me trying to orchestrate that for the little drum there. Nevertheless, guys, let's move ahead. As I said, now this is a point I've wanted to do for the last couple of weeks. Kind of ties in with my episode a few weeks ago regarding hidden gems. Well, this is essentially hidden gems for fantasy players out there. Now, a lot of you play fantasy leagues out there. Some of you may have been in one of our leagues before. Fair play to you if you have been. But these are players that I think can probably impact your team that aren't your big name players. So I'm not going to mention Curry, Jokic, Giannis, all those big name players. These are kind of the players lesser talked about that I think probably, middle to back end of the draft are going to provide real value for your team. So, guys, if you're not a fantasy player out there, I think this will still provide pretty beneficial. Just highlighting some players to keep an eye out for this season. Now, I've got 5 names here. Five names that, everything going to plan. Hopefully I'll get a hold of at least 2 or 3 in my upcoming draft. So looking forward to that. Guys, if you are a fantasy player out there and you are looking to be in a league, I'm just in the process of setting mine up at the minute. Rowan Lee will be in it. The blokes from the Fifth and Dribble, hopefully. A couple of other names have already reached out to me. But if you're a fantasy NBA player out there, you're interested in getting involved, send me a DM. Send the Daily Dribble a DM, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll see what we can do. I think we're thinking about this year now. I love fantasy sports, whether it's Fantasy Premier League for the EPL there, Super Coach for AFL, fantasy basketball. I love it. I'm always, front and center of any league there. Yet I know a lot of people I do it with after the first couple of weeks, if things aren't going to plan, they just seem to bundle out. They seem to drop out. So I'm going to make the point that if you're interested in joining our fantasy league, stick to the cause. I think we're thinking about making it maybe an entry fee this year, like $20, $25, whatever the case may be. Winner takes all. So it might be a prize pool of, a couple of $100 there, just to keep people invested. Who doesn't love the chance to win money? I know I certainly do. All right, guys, let's get into these 5 players. I will start first from the Utah Jazz, Walker Kessler. Now, he was a piece drafted this year. Was the number 22 pick in this year's draft. He was a piece of that trade from the Cavs, or the Cavs drafted him. He was a piece that went over to the Jazz. And I just think with the route the franchise is going, he's going to get all the opportunities in the world. He's a big, so he'll fill that void left by Rudy Gobert. Last year with Auburn, he averaged 11.5 points, 8 rebounds, a steal a game, but 4.5 blocks. So I'll just repeat that. 11.5 points, 8 rebounds, 1 steal a game, but was also dropping 4.5 blocks a game in college. That's unbelievable. That is huge. And if he were to do that in the NBA, that is bulk points right there. Now, his field goal percentage was around 70% last year. I think he offers great value towards the back end of your board. He's certainly probably not going to be your first choice center, but I think, as a backup center, I think he's going to get heaps of opportunity. As I said, Donovan Mitchell gone now, Rudy Gobert gone. Still talk of Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, all on the way out as well. Just fully clearing house and starting from rock bottom. I think they'll invest a lot of time and effort into Kessler there. And I think there's a potential with what he's shown in college. He could be one of their new cornerstones moving forward. He's going to get good points on good percentage. If he can get around, in my head, I'm thinking if he could average 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks as your backup center, you would be absolutely delighted. Now, depends how you do it with your league. Now, I know you can do different scoring formats. I I know in the league we've done before, it values high field goal percentage, it values blocks and steals. So I think on that basis, if your league's similar, he's a great pick, Walker Kessler. And again, it's probably a name that not too many people were familiar with. As I said, the 22 pick in this year's draft, often by about the 15 to 20 mark, people kind of tap out and lose focus a little bit of the draft. But I think at the number 22 spot there, take a chance on him. I certainly will be if he's available in that last pick or two, and I need another center. He's going to be a nice addition to my team, hopefully. Let's move ahead to the Washington Wizards. I've got Monte Morris. Now, he was traded in the offseason from the Nuggets to the Wizards in that KCP deal. I think he's a player who's set to flourish this season. 27 years old. I think, firstly, his excitement to play with Kyle Kuzma. Now, they grew up together, and that was always their dream, for them to kind of one day link up in the NBA. That moment's finally arrived, and for those guys, you know, if you've had that dream since a young age and it's finally come to fruition, their energy, excitement, the chemistry they'd already have established, bears nothing but fruitful from the word go, I think. Last season, he posted career highs in all major counting stats there. So 12.5 points, 3 rebounds, 4.5 assists, all in 29 minutes a game. But I think, so 29 minutes a game, that is solid. That is solid. But I think for the Wizards, I expect these minutes and his output to continue to increase. You look at who's on this team. We're looking at Bradley Beal, Porzingis, Kuzma. They're probably the big three who are going to occupy the ball. Rui Hachimura, Denny Advia, probably not going to be handling it or doing too much with it. So those three, Bill, Porzingis, and Kuzma, I think will occupy a lot of the defense, their attention. So I think it'll enable Morris to kind of fly under the radar, as a lot of these names will in their respective teams. But I think fly under the radar and just give you, he's not going to give you outstanding numbers. I think he's going to give you really solid numbers. As I said last year, 12.5, 3, 4.5. If he can get close to, he's really the only point guard on this squad, the only true point guard on this squad. So he should get a big opportunity to not only get big numbers or solid numbers, but get himself paid as well, which is a huge motivator for players out there. I'm looking at, probably 14, 4, and 5. Serviceable. Really, really solid there as a backup point guard in your squad. As all these players are, they're probably not going to be in your first couple of picks. But as I said, in that middle of the draft to the back end of the draft, offer plenty of value. So what have we had? We've had Walker Kessler and Monte Morris thus far. Let's move ahead to my third player. I tell you what, it's almost like a weekly occurrence now, but big shout out to our main man, our resident Bulls fan, Apex. Caleb, mate, I've got no doubt we'll have you in the league once again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see you pick up this player at one stage or another. Now, I've gone Pat Williams here of the Chicago Bulls. Spent most of last season on the sidelines due to wrist surgery. But on his return, he only played in the final 6 regular season games, in addition to the 5 playoff games versus the Bucks. Over these 11 games, he averaged 14 points, 6 rebounds, a tick over an assist a game, nearly a block and a steal each game on very healthy shooting splits. He went at 53% from the field, 47% from 3, and 78% from the line. Now, tell you what, that is super solid. 53, 47 from 3, and 78 from the line. Despite them going down in Game 5 to the Bucks, in Game 4 and 5, he had back-to-back 20 points efforts. And it kind of, for me and a lot of people out there, showcased a side of him that we weren't too familiar with seeing. We know what a menace and what a presence he has on that defensive end. But the offensive side of his game was lacking. Yet, as I said, this 11-game stretch, and in particular those last couple of games of the playoffs versus the Bucks there, really showcased what a well-rounded game he has. I think he's, as I said, that offensive side, it's been typically overshadowed by that defensive acumen he's got. Yet I think if he can stay healthy, And that being a big key here. If he can stay healthy, he'll be a key cog for this team. Now, as I said, Lonzo Ball not likely to start the season. Hopefully Caruso will come back fit and healthy. Zach LaVine there, DeMar DeRozan, the Vooch. As a team that would be hoping to lock in a top 6 spot, a guaranteed playoff spot. Now, if you look at the teams, we've done this a few times, but if you rattle through, the top teams in the East, you've got the Heat, 76ers, the Bucks, Philly. Oh, no, I've said them, so sorry. Bucks, Heat, 76ers. You could argue the Cavs, Nets, Celtics. Raptors, arguably. Hawks. Are they a team that fits into the top 6? I don't know. I think for me, if I was to make a prediction at the moment, without going too much into their depth charts and all that kind of other things, I would say they're a playing team at the moment. But I think if there to be any hope of guaranteeing themselves a spot in the playoffs, Pat Williams is going to have to be huge on both ends of the floor. If he can, I see him averaging 15, 6 and 3, plus a block and a steal a game. Hopefully he can continue those tidy shooting percentages. I expect them to go close to a playoff spot. He's going to have to be big though. And from a fantasy perspective, having a guy that's great on both ends of the floor, huge. As I said, I know our league values blocks and steals highly. So I think he'd be a fantastic pick. I'm not anticipating that I'll be able to pick him up. I think by the time he probably fits into the scope of my team, he'll probably will have been off the board. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's you, Apex, that takes him, mate. Let's move ahead to my 4th player here, Cade Cunningham from the Detroit Pistons. Now, I've seen a lot of people over the course of the last couple of weeks saying that Sadiq Bey is probably the guy they want. I disagree with that. I think Cunningham offers tremendous values. Probably not in that top couple of picks, but in the middle, he offers great value. Last season, stats of 17.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, tick over a steal a game, all whilst going 84.5% from the free throw line. For the Pistons, they're building. They're slowly building. They're not quite there yet, but a huge part of this rebuild and kind of that franchise cornerstone there is Cunningham. The continued progression of him will be dependent on how far the Pistons go and how quickly they go. As I said, there's players like Bey, Duran coming in, all these other young names coming up through the ranks, but it does depend on what Cunningham does. Now, I think with more competent players on this squad now, the younger players developing more so, I think he should have a higher assist rate whilst also getting better looks for himself. I love Cunningham at 6'6", 200. Oh, what is he? Around 220 pounds. He has the size and speed to get to the rim, which is great. Which is great for all fantasy players. As I said, our league values defensive blocks and steals and things of the kind. It also values field goal percentage. And with his ability to get to the rim, it bodes so well. He shoots a great percentage in and around the rim, as well as his stroke continues to build. It was 31.5% it was last year from 3. If that can see a bit of an uptick this season, 41.5% from the field. If both those categories can see an uptick this season, he's great value. And I expect them to. You always see a jump. The jump is, there's normally a little bit of a jump from college into their first year, but the big jump for players' progression comes from years 1 to 2. So I reckon if he could sit close to 48% from the field, 35, 36% from 3, you would be laughing. The thing that concerns me, or not concerns me, but to be mindful of, is the turnovers. He was a tick under 4 turnovers a game last season. If he could get that around 2 or so, as I said, great value. I wouldn't be surprised to see him averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal a game. As I said, everything will go through him. And as these players progress, as I said, these young names, these budding stars as part of the Detroit rebuild, it should enable him to clock up more assists and get better looks for himself. So I don't know. I'm just sorry. I'm just weighing up in my head as on the fly here. How many players in their second year get most improved? Now, often, as I said, it kind of goes with the territory that between years 1 and 2, you will have a jump. I'm just thinking, I reckon he could almost be a bit of a pick for most improved. And I think that'll tie in with how the Pistons will improve. I think it'll tie in with how he improves on the court and off the court as a leader as well. I think now he's got through that rookie campaign, we'll really start to see him marshal the troops. And the Pistons are a team, I think they're going to be a fringe playing team, probably around that 11 to 12 mark, I reckon. But they'll certainly be a lot more competitive than they have been in recent seasons. Let's move ahead to my fifth and final player there. I've got Bones Highland from the Denver Nuggets. Now, I love this guy. Or is it I just love his name? I'm not too sure. Either way, despite Jamal Murray coming back this season with the losses, as I mentioned, Monte Morris to the Wizards and Austin Rivers heading to the Wolves, the Nuggets are pretty thin on guards. So I think he should get heaps of opportunity to run that second unit and start on occasions. We saw him do both last season to great effect. Last season, he averaged 19 minutes a game across 69 games. But I certainly expect that to push towards the mid-20s this season. He averaged 10 points, 2.5 rebounds, tick under 3 assists a game. Yet he played 33 games with at least 20 minutes, which is more around the mark I expect him to have this season. He averaged 14.5 points, 4 assists, and 3.5 rebounds, all while shooting 47% from the field, 42% from 3, and 82% from the line, all whilst shooting 2.5 triples a game. And he had 6 games of at least 20 points and ended the year as one of only 8 rookies to average double digits in points. Now, that was all a bit of a blur and a mouthful, so I'll just repeat the key point in that. 33 games with at least 20 minutes, 14.5 points, tick under 4 assists, and 3.5 rebounds. Now, as I said, I reckon he'll be in and around the 25 to 26 minutes a game type mark this season. I think that is a better accurate representation of where he'll be at. If he's averaging 16, 17 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, doing it on healthy shooting percentages, I expect him to be a fantastic pickup at the back end of your draft. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of start, especially in that first part of the season, start quite a few games. I think they'll try and ease Murray back into the fold. There's no sense, especially with the talent they've got in Jokic, Porter Jr., Murray. They're going to be a playoff team. So I think it's probably prudent that they just ease Murray in. And that's where Bones Highland comes in. I think he's going to get ample opportunity. And I tell you what, with a name like that, you can't help but root for the guy, can you? So, guys, there you have it. There are my 5 players worth a shot on your fantasy team this season. We had Walker Kessler from the Jazz, Monte Morris from the Wizards, Pat Williams from the Bulls, Cade Cunningham from the Pistons, and Bones Highland from the Denver Nuggets. Guys, let me know what you think of those 5 players. Are they going to get a spot on your team this season? Or is it just going to be me that has them and gets to laugh at you all when you missed out at the end? Guys, as I said, it's been a massive week. Ball is just around the corner. You can start to smell it in the air, can't you? In particular, the NBL there. I'm absolutely buzzing. I'll have to be honest, I'll have to start getting my NBL fantasy team ready as well. But guys, let me know what you think of those players. If you were interested in joining our fantasy league, send me a DM. Send it quick though, because we've got very limited spots. We want to keep it pretty small, pretty niche there. Just because when we do our draft, it's normally a couple of hour process as it is with 10 to 12 blokes. But if we have too many more entrants, God damn, you can pencil out the rest of your day. But if you do want to spot in those ranks, send me a DM. Let me know what you think of those picks, which one you're going to try and snavel off me, and we'll go from there, guys. As always, be sure to stay up to date with all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Subscribe wherever you listen to the show. And guys, as a favor to me, said it the last couple of weeks, if you haven't done it already, if you've got friends out there who are basketball fans, let them know about the podcast. Share the love. We love having any and all new listeners from any corner of the globe. So send them our way, guys. Now, big shout out the other day to my main man, Ro there. Happy birthday for the other day, brother. 28 years old. I think might have been expecting the fellas back for this week's episode, but I know Ro's off to Sydney for the AFL preliminary finals there. Sydney Swans against Collingwood. Mate, as this one goes to air, you'll probably be in Sydney. But my fingers are crossed for you, pal. I hope the Swans get up and it's a happy flight back. But, happy birthday, mate. Be sure to have a couple of beers. I know we're going away in a couple of weeks' time to Queensland. So we'll be sure to celebrate appropriately then. Guys, take care. Have a fantastic week and start getting yourself amped up because, as I said, ball is just around the corner. Guys, take care.